Hello, my name is Frances Fox. I'm a trained remote viewer. I hope to become your favorite psychic spy because I was trained to be a psychic spy since I was a child. It was not my choice, nor is it what I do today. I work doing what I'm doing today, giving people information from other dimensions that should be making their lives easier. Simple information that generally doesn't cost money. That being said, our topic today is more violence. And when I determined the topic, I was not aware of what happened on Saturday night. Or actually, I think it was Saturday at 3 in the morning going into Sunday. I sketched the collective consciousness of the group I was working with last night. We did astral travel and we went to the mountain, Mount Kailash in Tibet, was part of my training when I was in Tibet. And so somebody asked me to sketch the collective. So I did, and this is what I sketched. So we do have the triple pyramid of protection. We still have the earth energy is raging with fire, which I just did the points, but I could fill it in with red, boiling, and it would be accurate. Our third eye is limping a little bit. But the bad thing that I sketched was that there was a wind of violence that came into the planet at 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. So that would have been Friday to Saturday morning. More violence. And most people don't understand what violence is. And most people don't know what to do when it comes about. We're actually living in the middle of it. I think that I'm going to go ahead and go back to sketching our collective consciousness when we get together. And I stopped sketching it because more people see or listen to this that we're doing now as a video. They listen to it in the podcast. I have to say, not that many more people. Everybody says it's great, but very few people are getting it. And of course, we all know that I am totally controlled so that I don't have access to the public or they don't have access to me. But I'm going to go ahead and sketch now and see how this particular group is doing today. And then I'm going to sketch it at the end also. And I did not give myself any notes for today. So with my wonderful ADD, we don't really know where we're going. Not so good. Don't know what that is. Oh my God. I do know what that is. Mm. Mm. World War III, it will be a miracle if we don't get pushed into World War III. So we do have the triple layers of pyramid protection. Yesterday, the fire in the planet had points. Today, it's like a wave. We have fire inside the triple pyramids of protection. And then we have this. Now, yesterday, the third eye was blue, but it was drooping. And I've never seen that before. And then we have this that reaches the third eye. But the curious thing is that I was going to talk about my hair today and ask your opinion as to whether I should let it grow longer. Excuse me, I'm just joking. I was going to talk about my hair, and now that I see that sketch, I'm really going to talk about my hair. So, you know how you see older women who get their hair done once a week, and then they walk around the last several days of that week, and you can tell where they laid their head down because the hair is parted. It's very, when you're looking at it, it looks terrible. They're not seeing it. Anyway, so that has started to happen to me lately, and I'm going, okay, so I am an old lady, but this is not good. I don't do it once a week. I wash my hair every other day. And if I'm really tired, maybe I'll go 3 days, but never longer than that. Okay, so today I made special sure, because this is the second day that I didn't have that in the back of my head. And I worked really hard with the brush and the blower and the whole 9 yards. So a while ago, I went and I took the mirror to see how it looked from the side. I have this tremendous place here that simply the hair is not going to work there. It's simply like opening up here. I don't sleep at that point. My head does not lay on this part of my head. And I don't think I'm going to be able to show it to you. I know I'm not going to be able to show it to you. But I think it corresponds to this, which is an invasion, something coming in to our third eye, which is why our third eye was drooping in the sketch from yesterday, and is why my hair is doing this at the top of my head. Let me talk to you about your hair and cowlicks. Cowlicks is your hair, but there's a spirit there. So the hair doesn't just grow out naturally. It's like in a spiral. It grows, or maybe not necessarily a total spiral, but it grows in a way that it's being pushed or going in a certain direction. And when you go to the hairdresser, they have to work around that, and they can kind of make your hair look better. And most people's cowlicks are in the back of their head, which is throat chakra, which is invasion of spirits. The biggest place where we're invaded is in the neck. And that's where there's most cowlicks. Then you can get it close to your temples. But mainly it's the back of the neck. So I think you should all check your hair and see if it at the top or in the back is starting to grow in directions that is different. And I think that many of you are going to find that that is the case. I don't think that I would be a worse example. I don't know if I put my head down here. So I've never had an issue there. What can I tell you? God leaves us a lot of maps that can help us to know what's going on. Our body is a map. The very famous healer, Carolyn Meese, said that our body is our biography, and it is. And you all know what I've said, that I'm not going to do any kind of plastic surgery or anything for my upper lip where I have terrible wrinkles, because those wrinkles are evidence of something that happened to me and that I haven't finished dealing with. I need to figure it all out and finish dealing with it. Now, I suspect those are going to go away as soon as you guys can get this whole sex trafficking thing over with, and us sex trafficking victims can feel more relaxed in the world, that we're going to not get taken down by somebody who thinks we're going to take them down for what they did. So you need to look at your body, and you need to look at the changes. And I'm coming to the conclusion that, no, I came to the conclusion the aging process is mainly a process of accumulation of traumas. And if you can deal with the traumas, either when it happens or afterwards, your aging process is much easier. You don't age as much. Your organs handle things better because they're no longer limping. And every organ has, Chinese medicine and Ayurveda has already figured out thousands of years ago what emotions, negative emotions, congest every particular organ that we have. And as I said yesterday, if you know what disease you have, you need to know what organ it is that gave you that disease. And then you need to go look on the internet for the chakra that channels the energy into that organ and is responsible for the condition of that organ. And that will tell you a lot. Like if you have lung cancer, super easy. That's grief. It's grief because it's lungs. It's associated with the heart, which is heart chakra. And it's cancer because something made you very, very angry, and there was nothing you could do about it. And it was associated with grief, and almost always with somebody that you love. So, and I was thinking as I was walking up the stairs, these revelations of the whole thing about the relationship between your diseases and your life, it's like a type of gossip. It's a medical gossip. But your disease is the one that's gossiping, not the media and not your doctor. He's not saying anything. He probably doesn't even know because he's doing the modern medicine thing, which just concentrates on the physical body. So, in sketching yesterday, which I hadn't done for a while, and then sketching today, there's something going on having to do with invasion in our crown chakra and in our third eye. And evidence is not a cowlick in my hair, but the hair here parts, and that's it. It doesn't matter how much I use the brush and I curl it to make it cover that area. It's not covering the area, and I'm not missing any hair there. I am not missing any hair there. And this has happened in the last, I would say, 2 or 3 days. And I suspect that this that I'm sketching in the third eye has happened in the last 2 or 3 days, which would make it close to when the new winds of violence entered the planet. So we need to keep sketching. In terms of more violence, there are studies done that are accurate, that are what you call scientific, that associate the beginning of world wars with solar cycles, with solar flares. And from what I can see on the internet, we are under another solar flare watch in terms of a solar flare or something from the sun that could take us all out. Something like the Covington event, to where I think it was like 100 and now 103 years ago, to where there was a solar flare that took out the telegraphs, because that's what we had. We didn't have any of this electronics that we have today. So how can I help you with this information? If you're having problems with the top of your head or your third eye, you need to look into it. And what are we talking about here? Third eye would be psychic abilities, clairvoyance, dementia, Alzheimer's, mental disease, superpowers, wisdom. That's all third eye. And then the crown chakra is mainly faith, but it also controls the spinal cord, which I did not know until like 2 or 3 months ago. Meanwhile, I have spinal cord damage, and I didn't know that. I should have looked that up. What silliness on my part. And so my spinal cord damage would be very associated, because it is controlled by the crown chakra, faith. So my spinal cord damage is associated with my lack of faith, which makes sense as a mind control victim. There was nobody I could reach out to. I couldn't reach out to the police, to authorities, because they were part of the issue. Very much a part of the issue. I said I was going to write a book when I started my process of remembering and going to therapy and working with psychologists. I said I was going to call the book, I was going to write a book. And the title of the book was going to be There Were No Lawn Chairs in the Everglades. Now, I was trained from before then, but when I was 12, I had some training in the Everglades. We don't need to go into any descriptives other than to tell you that I was left for 2 weeks with no clothes in a camp full of men. Not a good thing. The Everglades is like swamp. You do not walk in the Everglades, in the deepest part of the Everglades, without boots on. You're crazy. I mean, why would you do that? There's snakes, there's all sorts of things. We're not going to go into the stuff that happened that had to do with swamps. But as I said, the title of the book was going to be There Were No Lawn Chairs in the Everglades. So no comfortable place to sit, no comfortable place to be. Interesting. Now, why did I go off on that tangent? In the book, I was going to describe and inform people that there is a network of evil in society. And that when you go to a party or an event, a baptism, to church, there are evil people that you don't know that they're evil. They know that they're evil, and they know each other, and they network. And that was going to be the first chapter. I never wrote that book. I don't need to write that book because I did all my therapy to get past that. So today we're seeing the revelations of the networking of evil having to do with the Diddy trial and everything else that's going to come out. And I don't know if society is going to be able to tolerate dealing with that networking of evil that includes a lot of people that we have respected. So I'm going to say here again, and I've said it several times, and you probably go in one ear and out another. A lot of people that are involved in that were blackmailed. And you're hearing some of the blackmail, but I'm not sure that you're really getting it. And where does it all start? It all starts with evil spirits and with weaknesses that humans have and that the spirits take advantage of, particularly sexual weaknesses. So we can go ahead and clear the deck of all these people, which time we're basically not going to have society. But everybody that's coming up in the younger generations is already having sexual issues. So we're going to be right back there again. The reason for pornography and for the violence during sex and for all the crazy stuff that they do is to be able to have orgasm. If they could orgasm easily, they wouldn't be reaching out for these activities, these extracurricular activities, these events, these apparatuses or whatever the heck it is that they wouldn't. They'd be much more comfortable in their bed at home with their wife or with a girlfriend or whatever. They have it because they're struggling to have sex. And as I said in the 2 podcasts having to do with sex, sex is spiritual ecstasy. That's what's being looked for. They don't see it as spiritual ecstasy. But when you have an orgasm, you connect to God. And it is so incredible, you want it again. And if you can't have it, like a lot of men and a lot of women too, but they don't admit it, and we're not going to go there at this point, they want it. And they will do whatever to get it, including all of these things we're hearing about that are disgusting, but are commonplace, by the way. So when we talk about all of this, the bottom line is spirits and spiritual ecstasy. Does anybody talk about that? No. Including the really Christian ones that are talking and finger pointing in social media. The worst spirits are connected to sex, to sexual issues. So that's what we really need to get to. And I'm not going to destroy my podcast and my chats by continuously beating up people about this issue. But it's very important that we get to causal, or we just are going to repeat a cycle. And then last night I remembered the Mayans said that right before the end, and that's where we are now, people's subconscious would start to release sub-personalities. And people were going to start to remember stuff about themselves, stuff that they did. And they were going to be so upset because apparently the same thing that happened to me, that I had to go to therapy to retrieve the memories of the abuse. Apparently everybody's going through that now, but they don't have to go to therapy. So they're remembering that they kicked their cousin in the head when their cousin was 5 years old and the cousin ended up unconscious. They had to call the doctor, whatever, and they didn't really mean to do that, but they did. And then they don't remember it, but they're remembering it now. So the Mayans said that people would start to remember their darkness. Our darkness would be revealed right at the end, which is where we are now. So our darkness is getting revealed through social media. And according to the Mayans, in the Tortuguera prophecy, it is that exposing of the dark side of humans that is going to cause the biggest chaos, because people will have a hard time accepting that about themselves. Isn't that interesting? So we have here, we don't know how many people are remembering stuff that they did. That doesn't have to be anywhere remotely as bad as what we're seeing in the news. But stuff that they didn't remember that they did that. And then they have to They remember, and then they have to kind of figure out where to put that, because after all, they knew that they were good people. Well, how do good people do that? You know what? That whole question of why do good people do bad things is very simple. It's spirit influence. It's always been spirit influence. The guy that murders said, the devil made me do it. I didn't do that. You ask him, I didn't do that. And like somebody that I know that was picked up by the police for being, I think she tried to slap the cop. Very, very nice girl. And it was like, how did that happen? She had a spirit attached from being too nice, by the way. Nobody can be too nice. We all have a light side and a dark side. You see somebody that's too nice, we're talking trouble if you start to peel back some layers. And I think that's what happens with some people that we're seeing on social media, to where there's an incident and then you have this person that's supposed to be an upstanding citizen in society, and they go into this road rage, or they start to attack another person, and everybody's like, what is she doing? Mainly he's also, but it's more shocking when it's a female. What is she doing? She's never done that before. How did she lose it like that? She had something inside that she was hiding, because society does not encourage us to look at our dark side. They don't, because society is uncomfortable with their dark side. So here we have this whole Diddy thing going on. Great. So I think that they're not going to be able to stuff this back in the bottle and put it back in the closet, which means that this situation is going to be addressed to a certain extent. But what we're supposed to be doing is not finger pointing. We're supposed to go, what happened to them that they did this? We are not going to make it as a society until we understand the nature of a human being is an incredible level of goodness. And if they did something where they weren't good, there's an outside influence. There's something broken in them. And rather than punish them for being broken or having an outside influence, we need to find out what happened and clear it. There is a group of people in the mental health field that are upset at the name calling of people that are mentally ill. And they would like for therapists to stop trying to identify who did what to that person, or what happened, who did what to that person, and identifying what that person's doing bad because they're mentally ill, and ask what happened to that person that they are mentally ill. The same as soon, if you continue listening to this podcast, when you get sick, even if it's a cold, you're going to ask, what is this about? Well, you had an infection, a sinus infection. No, that's a symptom. Yes, you have that. Boring. Where did it start? Well, sinus infections are unshed tears. Still, you didn't get to cause it. What happened that you had those tears accumulating? Not why didn't you shed them? What happened that caused you to have those tears? And that will make it not just more interesting and a medicine that's more effective, because you're going to causal. Causal can create 20 issues. If you don't go to causal, you're dealing with the issues. And years ago, I started to say that it really irritated me when I would ask somebody, they would say they were sick, going to the doctor. Okay, what did the doctor say? He says I have such and such a thing. And I would say, okay, he gave you a name to a set of symptoms, but what do you have? Most of them didn't understand my question. I said, that's a name. They put a little name on a set of symptoms. Where did that get you? And today, when I was reading something, basically it said, where does that get you? That gets you a name, and then there's a medication for that. So that's why they have to name it, because then they know exactly what medication they can order, and the pharmaceuticals and everybody else will be happy. We addressed the issue. No, you didn't. When you name a disease, you have not done anything but put a name on a series of symptoms. So we're supposed to be talking about violence today, but I kind of got the habit of going where it is that it feels like I need to be going. I have a mind that is very ADD, and I find that if I try to be too structured, it gets boring. And we definitely don't want to bore you because we know that people today have a big issue having to do with attention span. So we have to reach the point, and why don't we start now? Why all of this sexual perversion? Well, we never knew the definition of sex. We never accepted how important it was, and then we restricted it to people because that was good for society, because society wanted continuity. So you could only have sex with the person that you have a commitment with, which generally is marriage. According to the dolphins, that doesn't work. And you and I both know that that does not work. I am not promoting that people be sleeping around with everybody. I like the Margaret Mead version of marriage, which is serial, which means that the person that's good for you when you were young and to have children with and to establish whatever, maybe is not the same person. Maybe it's not the right person for once the kids are gone, and then your life is different, you want different things. Maybe that person is no longer that person that will be able to walk that part of the path with you. If I believe, I am almost 100% sure she serial marriages, which of course society looks very poorly on, but I believe that that is actually much healthier and a little bit closer to what the dolphins say, which basically when I say it everybody kind of goes uh-huh, which is that commitment in a relationship to restrict sex to just one person is not good. It truncates one of our basic needs, which is sex, but also love. The dolphins say that sex is physical love. And I trust them because I've been watching everything they've said to me, comparing notes, and I trust them, and I believe that that is true. So, with what's going on today, which is very basically emotional, it's not emotional, it's sexual violence, what's the root cause? I have the answers. Society needs to find the answers, and they need to address that. The thrust of all of this should not be finger pointing and blame. Shame is the most devastating of all human emotions. Shame is more destructive to a person and to a society than hatred. The United States, and I had a podcast on this, has a huge issue of shame and going to be very difficult to establish, make America great again with the level of shame we have for all of the things we did when we were brain dead and doing stuff across the planet that now we recognize we shouldn't have been doing. And the whole thing with forgiveness, from what I have learned, you don't need to forgive anybody. You need to get to the bottom of what it is that happened and go into your rage or depression about it, because it was really all about you. Whatever was done to you was really all about you. And the forgiveness just comes automatically. And of course, my classic story, I couldn't be here today if all those people had not done all of those god awful things they did to me. And I knew that before I incarnated. I needed that process because I needed to be in that place, and to be in that place, I needed to go through all of that because that's what that place was about. And then to be able, and then to get here. Do I need to forgive those people? I accept that I chose that. I really do. I didn't for decades, but I did. So everything that's happening today happened for a reason. And we have to get to the reason, not to the finger pointing and the blame, because the shame is going to take us all down. And it's certainly going to take this country down. The Epstein thing, mainly centered in the United States, from what I have read. The Diddy thing, mainly centered in the United States, from what I can see. The whole interfering with other countries' politics and elections and free will, the United States. The riots in the street, yes, you're having it other places now, but we had it first. What are we going to do about that? And you know what? We can address it, but not with traditional methodologies. The mantra, even though I'm ashamed, is the one that there's two mantras that create the biggest change the quickest. One is aligning with your prosperous mission. And the second one, if not the first one, is the shame one. So we're going to end this get together today doing the shame mantra. And I want for you to check yourself right now from 1 to 10, self assessment. 1 is you feel awful, 10 is you feel great. Where are you at right now? And the mantra is just very simply, even though I'm ashamed. You don't have to know what you're ashamed of. You don't have to remember anything. You may remember stuff, which is good, which means it got dislodged from your muscles and your tissue. So it is and you repeat the mantras in silence. You expel the breath through your mouth. And we're going to do 5 minutes of this. And heart and crown. We're going to do the music that was composed by Mateo Cuaron for Venezuela, which was composed for the crown chakra, which would have to do with shame, and the heart chakra. So we're going to do 5 minutes of this, okay? Look how interesting. I sketched you as you were doing the shame mantra. And look what happened. You're releasing bubbles of green energy, which is heart chakra, which is great. And then the hands got green, which is means your heart energy has reached the ends of your arms, your hands. And then the third eye got straight rather than droopy. So now from 1 to 10, how do you feel? Can you feel the difference? Because I think a lot of you are going to sleep better tonight. Everything that's coming out of the news means that everybody who ever did anything even remotely wrong sexually has got to feel terrible, like it's in their face. And whereas it's good that this stuff comes up, it's not good that our reaction is shame. And our society right now is in a high in terms of finger pointing, but we're going to hit a low in terms of shame as a society. What kind of a legacy are we leaving with all of this? And why are we not asking, how did we get here, to try to get to root cause what those particular psychologists are suggesting, rather than identifying how sick somebody is, asking what did they go through, what happened that they would get this sick. And I'm going to say something that I probably shouldn't say. When I was going to therapy, and I went to 3 different psychologists, a regular one, which was a male, and he said that I really needed to be treated by a female because it was so much sexual abuse issues. Then I went to a female that put me in a group for abused females, like a group therapy. And I dropped out because my stories were so horrifying, because people share. And I would share, and the whole room would go into shock. And I realized that was not good for the other people, because it was like diminishing the importance of what happened to them. And I told the therapist, and she wasn't happy with that, but she said she kind of agreed. She had to agree. I mean, I can't do group process because the stories are just too horrifying. So you either go into shock or you go into, oh, she's lying. Neither of which is going to help anybody. So we've got to get to the point where we ask, how did we get here? And not in terms of how did all this get covered up and how many people. I am telling you, because I have been there, the level of blackmail and what it does to a person, and how they can end up their entire life, can be totally thrown off track with one of these incidents, because the incidents are really ugly, traumatizing. And then, of course, you get the reminder of what they have on you. And I think, and it's kind of like a joke, and I guess we could say it's a joke because of my age, but I remember a couple of years ago, the group that I have had issues with, legitimate issues with, were discussing how they were going to take me down and how to ruin my reputation. And they had some photographs of me. Oh, do I remember that? And I remember that I said over the phone, and I knew they were listening. I said, you know, it's going to be really interesting if they put those photographs out, because somebody has to ask, why would an old lady with cellulite allow somebody to take pictures like that? That doesn't make any sense. This was not voluntary. Anyway, they never did it because it didn't make any sense. Who the hell would want pictures like that? I mean, come on. But anyway, they were desperate. They're now desperate, depressed, down and out, and still not moving out of Miami. That's because Spain does not have an extradition, does have extradition treaty with the United States, because if not, they'd all be in Spain, living a high life, drinking wine every night, eating manchego cheese, and never paying any consequences. But they can't go to where they want to go. And they don't like the islands, by the way. They would stick out like sore thumbs. Anyway, you have to have a sense of humor, right? So that's it. Thank you for joining me. So you feel better. Your hands are warm. Well, listen, your warm hands are reflected in that sketch. So you might want to spend the rest of the evening, when you're not talking to somebody or in the middle of your TV show, do the mantra. And anytime something happens that you find slightly embarrassing, do the shame mantra. And if you have, what do they call it, rosacea on your face, that were parts of your face have red, and they can do laser treatments also. Don't do laser treatments, just do the shame mantra, because that is causal is shame. Okay? Thank you for joining me. I'm Frances Fox, and this is News from Other Dimensions. And yes, we did cover violence a little bit. Oh, you know what? I'm going to say one more thing about violence. In terms of sex, which I know entirely too much about, when, I'm going to talk about men, struggle to orgasm, one of the things that can help them is fear and pain. And that starts the whole game of how do we do this without inflicting permanent harm. Those two things can help them to achieve that orgasm, which is spiritual ecstasy. Please remember that. Orgasm is spiritual ecstasy. These people don't go to the parties just to do whatever. They're looking for the sex. What is the culmination of sex is orgasm. So they are looking for orgasm. They're looking for spiritual ecstasy, even though they don't know that term. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for that sensation. And another thing, in terms of like the best sex you can have on the planet is tantric sex. Very few people achieve that. It's pretty complicated. The trick is with tantric sex that once you experience it, there's nothing that can compare. And once you experience it, it changes your view on life. Life is different. It's not the same. It's not better. It's not the same, because you know the difference. And it all has to do with spiritual ecstasy, which is a deep connection to God. So now we go to the ditty, the sex trafficking, the mind control, and using all the sexual perversion to distort the victim's mind. And we're talking about a connection to God. And none of those people know that. We really need to get educated about what a human being is, etc. Thanks for joining me. And I think this is the third time I've said goodbye, but that just makes me very Cuban.